Hey guys, welcome to this new episode. We are going to be working on the creation of an accounting system in MS Excel part 4. In this new episode, we are going to create the trial balance. In our previous videos, we saw how to create the journal. We lastly saw in part 3 how to create the ledger account. Today we are going to be working on the creation of the trial balance. But before we go to the creation of trial balance, let's add some spices to what we did in our previous lesson in the creation of a detailed ledger account. Already here we created this ledger account which can summarize or give details about the movements of an account. So I will just want to put a total here so that we can be able to identify the balance of every account. So here I'm just going to put something like total debit. Let me put it in caps. Total debit, total credit, and in this here I'm going to call for the total debit just by using the sum function. I'm just going to sum all of this, and here I'm just going to autofill towards the right. I'm just going to increase the size of the cells. Okay, so yeah, I'll just make it in the form of some headers. Just going to put some colors there. Okay, then yeah, I'll just put some borders. Okay, so you can see the total debit doesn't equate the total credit. So I will then want to get the balance of the account in question, the balance, and here I will then have to do like the debit minus the credit or the credit minus the debit. But in this case, you notice that if we do the debit minus the credit, obviously here we are going to have a credit balance, just because there are some opening balances at the level of the opening balances actually, and in terms of debited movements it is actually lower. But if we check on it in real time, you will notice that it will actually be more, like the debits will actually be more because of the opening balances. So these are just in terms of movements. So I'm going to just do this. Since it's an asset account, this is an asset account or a current asset account, I'm going to just make the debit minus the credit. So in this case, it shows negative 500 and or let me say negative 5,500,000. So that's just what I wanted to do here, so that when we check on an account like this, it should do this. But this is not yet okay, because it is likely that some accounts that have credit balances also appear here. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to, before this function, I'm going to put the function absolute, which is going to make the difference of the values always absolute. So meaning each time it's negative, it should always make it positive, like the value should always be positive. So I'm going to put here absolute. Absolute is the function absolute is abs. So I close bracket and you will see it always makes it positive. Then I will have to come here and call for the account balance type. So I'm going to use the VLOOKUP function. Looking up to this account, I'm going to block it with the F4 key. In the table array for the accounting plan, and the lookup value is going to be at the level of the default balance type, meaning column 1, 2, 3, 4 in column 4, and I will want an exact match. So I close bracket, and I will put the if error function at the start, put the if error function and the close bracket. So in this case, when I select an account like this, it will tell me the type of balance it is, like 2 million debit balance. If I choose this account, you see it will be debit balance, and something like this, it will show credit balance and so on. So in this case, you can see, okay, like this, it will show debit balance and so on. So that's actually what I wanted to put again. so that it should summarize this table and actually show the balance at this level. So you can further change, put more beauty to the way it is presented. So in here, that is it. So let's then move to the trial balance. So I just wanted to add this so that we can have a quick summary of what is going on the other side of the page. So for the trial balance, we are going to build together a 6-column trial balance. Already, we made a ledger account, and building the trial balance is not going to be much of a big deal again, because we've already seen how to get the totals of accounts at the level of the ledger account. So what I'm going to do here is that instead of me just creating something from afresh and redoing all what we've done at the level of the ledger, because practically we're going to need the same informations that at the level of the ledger, just that it's going to be in terms of 6 columns. I mean, 6 columns, I'm talking about opening balances, movements, and final balances. So in order to gain in time, I'm going to duplicate the ledger worksheet. So I'll right click on it and I will say move or copy. I mean, right click on the worksheet, I think move or copy. Then from here, I will say create a copy, create a copy. And from there, I will move it to the end. So if I don't move it to the end, it can just stand anywhere. I just want it to stand, to create a copy and put it at the end of the different names. So I'll just do it this way. So you see as written the ledger 2. So this is ledger and this is ledger 2. So I'm just going to rename this to be called the trial balance. Trial balance, good. So from here, what do I need? Already these columns are okay. The account name, the balance type, it's already awesome. The next thing I will need will be to increase the columns here and to change the formulas which are in there. So in here, I will need, it's a 6-column trial balance. I'm just going to add like insert 3 other columns. I'm going to insert. So I'm just going to select these 3 and insert. It will insert 3 other columns. So okay, so this is nice. So up here I'm going to call this one movements. No, this one I'm going to merge the cell here and equally merge the next 3 cells, the next 6 cells. So here I'm going to call this opening balance, opening balance. Here I'm going to call these movements, and here I'm going to call these closing balances. So here I'm going to have debit credit for the opening balance. Oh, short. I surely mistakenly removed what was there. So I'm going to call this opening balance. Good. So here we're going to have the debit, but as you can see, we already had debit here. So it will duplicate the debit to debit 2, here credit, and here debit, here credit, here debit, and credit. So for each of them, like for the opening balances, we have debit and credit. Let me increase both. Okay, for movements too, we have we equally have debit and credit. Let me increase both. And for the closing balance too, I'm going to put a color, different color. We have debit and credit. So from here, the headers are just going to because at the level of a table, the headers cannot have the same name. So that's why when I put debit and credit here for the first time, then debit and credit, debit will now go to debit 2, credit 2, debit 3, and credit 3. So no worries about that. So I'm just going to restart the functions that are inside. I'm just going to delete what is inside so I can actually work it out properly. In terms of the opening balance, this trial balance is going to be looking up to the the opening balances which are in here. We're going to be looking up to this table. So I will come here at the level of the trial balance, and for opening balance I can use the VLOOKUP function to look up to the account numbers at the level of the opening balances. So I'm going to use the VLOOKUP function, but before that I'm just going to start with the if error. So equals if error, Now I can come with a VLOOKUP function. Looking up to this cell or this account from the table array is in the opening balance. So this is going to be the whole table, table 3, and the column index number, since we're on the debit side that way, is going to be column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, column 6, and we want an exact match. I'm going to close bracket for the VLOOKUP function, then now put the value if error, which is going to be nothing. So from there, it's going to call for the value. So I will just use this very same function. I will just copy this, come to the credit side. I've copied with Control plus C. I will just paste with Control plus V, then change the column number to be number 7. And from them, I already have the opening balances of the different accounts. So now we get to the movements. The movements is practically going to be exactly the same thing we did at the level of the the ledger, just that it is not going to accumulate with the opening balances, because this ledger accumulated the movements in the journal plus the opening balance. So in this trial balance, we have then separated the opening balances from the movements. The movements are going to be those transactions which actually entered where at the level of the journal. So I could just come here and copy the first function that I entered in here, so that it should just work things out. But I'm just going to do it again. So we want to sum each time this account was mentioned at the level of the journal. So in here, I will come to the trial balance and I will stand at this level. I will use the sum if function. And before I start the sum if function, or will I possibly need the if error? Not really. So I'll just start with the sum if function. So sum if, okay, the range here is going to be at the level of the journal. The range here is going to be the account numbers. So the criteria is at the trial balance, and this is what we need. We need the account number, which is at the level of the trial balance. And the sum range is going to be the amount debited in the journal. So amount debited in the journal here. Let me just remove this here. Good. So no, the amount debited, not the amount credited, the amount debited. So from there, I just close bracket and I take this. So it's just going to sum all the movements of the different accounts. Same thing, I'm going to do same thing at the level of the credit side of the movements. We're going to use the sum if function. Sum if function, the range is going to be at the level of the journal, these account numbers. The criteria is going to be in the trial balance here, and the sum range is going to be at the level of the journal, but the credit side. I close bracket and I take the enter key. So from there, we have the total of every account that were debited or credited at the level of the journal. So now we need to get the balances, and for this balance, I had to call this closing balance. At the level of the balances, we need the balance for the debit side and the balance for the credit side. So we are going to condition this such that if because we will not be there to always know that the balance should stand on the debit side or the credit side. So we're going to condition such that in case the balance type is a credit balance, the amount should then appear at the level of the credit side, and it should, in case it has by default a debit balance, the amount should then appear on the debit side of the closing balances. So how do we go about that? However, to get the balance, we have to take the opening balance debit plus the movement debit minus the closing balance debit minus the opening balance credit plus the closing balance closing. What am I saying? I think it is the opening balance debit plus the movement debit minus the opening balance credit plus the movement credit, if at all the account is or has by default debit balances, and the reverse for credit balance. So actually it will be debit minus credit for debit balances and credit minus debit for credit balances. So here we're just going to reason it out and say if, just going to say if at the level of my logical test, I would say if this balance type is equal to
I'm going to put in quote debit balance. If what is in here is debit balance, I'm just going to write debit balance the way I've been writing all through. I've been writing debit balances. If it is equal to debit balances, then what should we do? We should come along here. The value if true should be, I'll put in bracket, it should be the opening balance debit plus the movement debit minus the opening balance credit, or instead of putting minus like this, I will put minus, then open bracket again in order to sum the credit sides, credits, minus credit plus credit. So I'm going to do the debit plus debit, all that minus the credit plus credit. So I close bracket. So here let me mistake. So let me close bracket. So you can see I open bracket here to say debit plus debit. I close bracket, then minus open bracket credit plus credit. So in this way, I am sure that is going to centralize everything the way it's supposed to be. So that is what will happen if this is a debit balance. But if it doesn't see debit balance here, we are currently summing at the level of the debit side. If it doesn't see debit balance here, then we don't want it to calculate anything, because we want on the closing balance debit side that it should only capture those items that, or those balance types that have debit balances. So as a result, I'm just going to say nothing. Yeah. If this is credit balance, then don't do anything. But if it is debit balance, do the calculation of the debit minus the credits. So that's what I want it to do. And I close bracket then. So from there you can see each time is credit balance. Here you will see it will not calculate, but each time is debit balance, it will do. Now I need to find out why it is giving these error messages. Surely the error messages are appearing because at the level of the balances there is no value, like nothing, like no zero or nothing. And is it actually affecting our result? If here we have debit balance, okay, it is actually affecting our result because here we have nothing, like nothing. So we will try to solve the problem, because here it's actually saying nothing, it is causing a mistake or problem. Okay, so at the level of the opening balances, we could just make it such a way that in case there is nothing, it should just put zero. Let's try this out. Our trial balance, we notice that this is showing an error message once the cells at the level of the opening balances have no value, because presently it is showing no value and there is an error message. We cannot just put in the if error function here, because as you can see here, it is showing no value of which it is supposed to show a value. And if we put the if error function, it will just make in such a way that these should not be visible, of which and at the end of the day, it will not give any result, and at the end of it all, nothing is going to be fine actually. So we will have to look for ways to put at least a zero here, like in case there is nothing, then at least a zero should appear in here so that it can be able to make the computation. We can just condition the different cells so it works it out. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to come to the opening balance, but I'm going to condition the cell such that if it goes to the opening balance worksheet and doesn't see a value here, instead of showing or giving an empty cell, instead of it giving an empty cell here like this, it should put just zero so that our formula here can work. So I will not delete whatsoever I've already done at the level of the opening balance. What I've done there is already very perfect with the VLOOKUP function. But I'm going to copy this function, excluding the if error, like just VLOOKUP function. I'm going to copy this. So this is why I'm copying this. So I'm going to condition, I'm going to put a function Remember, the if error function is a function that covers all the functions. So if I'm to put the if function, I am going to put it just after the if error function. So I'll put the if, I'm going to put a conditional statement. If all these VLOOKUP function and everything, meaning if the outcome that this function gives, if the outcome that this function gives is equal to nothing, like if the outcome gives nothing, then what should I do? I should put 0. Simple. In case it shows nothing, like here, in case it shows nothing, I want it to give a figure which is 0. Else, if it then shows something, then that something should appear. So I just take Ctrl plus V in order to paste back the VLOOKUP function so that it should then give the outcome. So as simple as that. The function that was already there, which was giving these outcomes, if the outcome is equal to nothing, then it should do 0. But if the outcome is equal to something, then it should then give the something or the outcome in question. So I'm just going to close the if function bracket and I take the tab key. Oh, good. So from here, I can see that it is putting zeros all through. So I'm going to do same here. I'm going to copy the VLOOKUP function completely for the credit side. And from here, I will stand and say if all the VLOOKUP function is equal to nothing, then 0. If not, it should put the outcome. So I close bracket and I take the tab key. So henceforth, you can see since it is seen at least a 0 there, it can easily calculate and everything is just fine the way we want it to be. So I'm just going to do the same thing at the level of the credit side. In the debit side, we had to test whether the balance type is a debit balance. So here I'll now come and say if the balance type is equal to credit balance, because now we are on the credit side, I'm going to put it in quote, credit balance, I close my quotes, and if it is equal to credit balance, then what should we do? We should do, I'll open bracket, we should do the total credits minus the debits. So I'm going to take the credit movement, I am here, credit movement plus credit opening balance, I close bracket, minus open bracket, the debit movement plus the debit opening balance, plus the debit opening balance. So from here now, I can close bracket. In case then it doesn't see this credit balance, that's I'm under the value if false. In case it doesn't show debit balance, then it should do nothing. If it doesn't show debit balance, then obviously it is showing if it doesn't show credit balance, then it is definitely showing debit balance. And in case it is debit balance, we're on the credit side, we don't want to have anything to do with that. So I will just close bracket. No, I will just say nothing. So for it to do nothing in case it sees debit balance. So I just close bracket and I take the tab key, and from there you can see it is actually calculating the way we want it to be. So that is it about our trial balance. But we could look for ways so that these these zeros should not show again, because the way I've made this table is such that below here you will never know that something can actually happen to it, like of which there are actually functions all through since they're in a table. So I never wanted to make somebody understand that there is a table that continues. I just wanted it to. So maybe in our next video we shall see how to eliminate these zeros from being visible. For it not to be visible again, we can do it in different ways. We can apply conditional formattings. So that is it about the trial balance. So let's just try and see whether our trial balance is balancing. I will not want to put the totals at the bottom because I've made this table really long, and I could put the totals at the top, but the top is saturated and I cannot insert a line here, because if I insert a line, this first account number will no more be visible, because I guess the accounting plan starts from row 3, and here the trial balance is already at row 3. So there can be a limitation at that level, but I can still put my different totals by the side. So I can make it, or let me copy this. Let me copy these headers. I'm gonna copy them. Then I will stand here and paste. I will paste uh, downward, like for it not to be horizontal, I'll paste it vertically. So I will come here and I take this so it can paste vertically. So from there, you will then notice that I can increase this, and why not making it wrapped? No, if I make it wrapped, it's going to affect. Um, let me just wrap it and see. Okay, I think it's fine this way. Then I'm going to put it at the center. Good. So yeah, I'm going to have the debit and the credit for the opening balances. So I'm just going to put a quick summary here. Okay. Just put it in borders. So from here now, I can have some other borders which will total them. Okay. So here I can put borders like this. Good. So here I'm going to get the total of the debit side of the opening balance. So I can just come here and sum. There's a sum function. I'm just going to sum the debit side. Good. Here I'm going to sum the credit side of the opening balances. You see it balance. Here I'm going to sum the debit movements, and here I'm going to sum the credit movements. Good. Balancing. Here I'm going to sum the debit closing balance, and here I'm going to sum the credit opening closing balance, I mean. So you can see everything is balancing. Our trial balance is balancing the way we want it to be. So that is just very cool. You can just arrange this table to look much more prettier than this, and I think that is fine. So in our subsequent video, we are going to see how to then build our income statement and possibly our balance sheet from this trial balance, which is already balancing. So hope you enjoyed the video, and see you in the next video for us to move ahead with the creation of our accounting program. Thank you for watching.